Hello friends, this is just a quick tutorial on how to make QR codes with Inkscape. If you don't have Inkscape, I highly recommend you head over to inkscape.org and peruse their download section to find the version that is appropriate for you. I am using Windows 64-bit. And when you get to this download page, it actually auto-downloads the file you need to start the setup wizard. You can click here if it doesn't download automatically for you. And if you'd prefer to just download the files and install them yourself without a wizard, I suppose there is an option to do that, but most people will just use the wizard and it's fine. Once you click on that file, it will start up the setup wizard for you. It'll probably walk you through basic things like if you want to have a desktop shortcut, a start menu option for that, your directories, all that fun stuff. Since I already have Inkscape on my computer, I am just going to cancel this wizard for now. So let's head on over to a new Inkscape project. And right off the bat, you're going to find this type of setup with a page background. Whenever you create any projects in Inkscape, you won't actually see this page background in your exports. This is just kind of a visual aid for the user to kind of gauge size in reference to what your object will look like on a piece of paper. I personally don't even like to use that. I just do all my work on a blank canvas. We'll talk more about some of the export options later, but let's get to the point. Here's how we make a QR code. We go up to Extensions, we drop down to Render, we scroll over to Barcode/QR code, and then move over to QR code in the next little drop down. And here is our QR code creation window. Now, if you want to see what your QR code looks like as you are playing around with the parameters here, you can click this live preview button and it will show it right there. Actually, let me close this real quick and I'm going to zoom in just a little tighter. We'll do this again. Extension, Render, QR code. Move that out of the way. Hit live preview. So now we can see what it looks like. For the most part, you shouldn't really need to adjust anything outside of the default values here. Some things that you can change that are pretty straightforward is the square size. So if you want a bigger or smaller QR code, it says that it's in pixels, but I don't think that this is 3 pixels. That looks more like centimeters. But I know that can be misleading until you see the actual printed result. But say I wanted a bigger one, I can type whatever value in I want there. And that's fine, but I don't know how necessary it is because the finished product is scalable. Because we were working in a vector art program, everything is vectorized, meaning that as I scale in or out on my different objects, the pixelization remains the same. You don't lose or gain any pixels. It keeps everything perfect. But I do know that if you try to shrink the resulting QR code down too much, it does sometimes affect the export a little bit because of like DPI considerations and things like that. So anyway, we can change the square size, and we can also change if we want it to use square bits in the image or circular bits in the image, which that's kind of interesting. I've never seen that before. I don't know if that might affect the functionality or readability with certain devices. Something to experiment and try out. Anyway, we'll go with square for now. And then, of course, we have a text field up top that is where we put our URL that we want the QR code to link to. I have put in the URL for the website for my martial arts school. Once we have everything as we want it to be, we can click apply and it will render the QR code, and then we can hit close, and then we can go in here and take a closer look at our QR code. We can resize it. I recommend holding Control and Shift while you resize, so it keeps the dimensions locked to each other, the X and Y dimensions. The QR code will have its own clear white background, so you don't have to worry about that. And it's very useful to be able to change the size for whatever your needs are for this QR code. Once we have it and we're satisfied and we're ready to export it, we will go over to this export page. Now, if you don't see this export page, you can always go to File, Export, or you can also use the keyboard shortcut Shift-Control-E, or I just say Control-Shift-E to pull this up. So if I'm on some other window over here, Control-Shift-E will pull that right up. Plus, we also have these cool little tabs with icons up at the top for different things, like your layers, your control, fill, stroke stuff. And this one here is for exports. Now, an important thing to note about this export page is that we have different ways of exporting. We can export everything. We can export every single item that is on this entire canvas here. So if I was experimenting with bits and pieces of different shapes and images and lines and text and stuff all over the place, and then I had this option highlighted when I exported, it would export everything in the entire document. That is something that you usually do not want to do. And I am speaking from experience. Learn from my mistake. If you have like a bunch of stuff that you don't intend to export, be sure you don't accidentally have this. You might get some really ridiculously large files from that one little mistake. So let me just go ahead and get rid of all that stuff I just made. Control and mouse wheel zooms in and out. If I have my QR code or whatever I'm exporting on this page background and I click the page option here, it will only export whatever is visible within this page. And then, of course, if I have things scattered all over and I don't want to bother dragging it to the page, I can just either click on or drag and highlight whatever I want, and then hit the selection button up here. I don't understand why we have a selection option, but also a radio button that says export selected only. I would assume that it already is exporting only the selected things just by having this option in play. Maybe somebody smarter than me has an answer to that question. And we can also change the background color of the thing that we're exporting. I'm just going to leave it as it is for now. We can hit this folder icon to choose where we want to save the file and what we want to save it as. I'm going to save mine as website URL. It's defaulting to a .png, but we can also drop down and save it as other types of files. We can do JPEG, we can do PDF, we can even save it as a vector file. I'm just going to go ahead and leave it as a PNG, and we're going to go ahead and hit save. I already have that file on my website, so it's just going to replace it. Once you do that, it will automatically export the file for you, versus older versions of Inkscape, you had to then hit the export button once you set up how it's going to save. You can also, I forgot to mention, change like the resolution of it, like the dots per square inch of it, so like how fine the detail is in it. Especially good if you wanted to print a URL on something really big. I'm sorry, print a QR code on something really big like a banner. So you'd want to increase that to like maybe 300 dpi. Also good for like screen printing and stuff when you send in images to websites to print up t-shirts and what have you. And you can check the width and height of the thing that you're exporting. So let's head on over to the desktop real quick and take a look at the QR code that we just created. And voila, there it is. It's a beautiful thing. And just for grins, let's make one more. Go to render, barcode, QR code, and QR code. And just to see what it looks like, let's do a QR code with circular shapes instead. We'll go ahead and hit apply and close. And we'll zoom in and take a closer look at that. Interesting. I'm not sure if the functionality or the readability of that is any different than the square one. It would be something to definitely test out before printing a bunch of QR codes with this, just because you think it looks cool. Anyway, I hope this was useful for you. And if you have any questions or comments for me, feel free to leave a comment in the comment section below. Have fun with this, and as always, have a blessed day.